Hey everybody, Rob Maurer here, and today we have a number of different pieces of news to go through on Tesla, as well as some news on competition and on the macro environment. And as I said yesterday, I want to talk a little bit more about the news we got over the weekend, specifically on Model Y. The first topic I want to cover here sort of spans new developments over the last 3 days, and unfortunately it is coronavirus. Everyone has their own metrics and stats that they prefer to look at for this, so I don't want to get too into detail on that, but new cases have continued to rise in the United States. We're now seeing the death count start to rise again as well. And with that, we are seeing reopenings scaled back, more restrictions being put in place, and one such location doing that is California. On Sunday, California announced that effective July 13th, so yesterday Monday, that all counties must close indoor operations in the following sectors: dine-in restaurants, wineries and tasting rooms, movie theaters, family entertainment centers, zoos and museums, and card rooms, and that bars and similar must close down operations unless they are offering sit-down outdoor dine-in meals, and that alcohol could only be sold in the same transaction as a meal. Additionally, California has a county monitoring list, which monitors counties for elevated disease transmission, increasing hospitalization, and limited hospital capacity. And counties that are on that monitoring list for 3 consecutive days are required to shut down fitness centers, worship services, protests, offices for non-essential sectors, personal care services, hair salons and barbershops, and malls, unless those things can be modified to operate outside or by pickup. So at least at this point in time, none of those would seem to have an impact on Tesla's operations, but obviously it's not great to see the trend moving in that direction, and Alameda County is on the monitoring list, though it has been on the list for fewer than 3 days at this point. I believe that'll change though, because on Sunday, Alameda County announced that they had been added to the list. As far as Tesla goes, we have a report today from Electrek, which claims to have obtained Tesla's coronavirus tracking data. The report that they show goes through week 28, that's likely either July 4th or July 11th, and tracks a few metrics, most notably affected cases and number of positive cases. So the positive case number is somewhere in the 130 range. Electrek blurs out that last digit, and then the affected cases is over 1,500. That seems to be a form of contact tracing. Tesla has roughly 10,000 employees in Fremont, so that's about 1.3%. While Alameda County has about 8,300 positive reported cases so far on a population of roughly 1.7 million, so about 0.5%, which doesn't sound great for Tesla, but at the same time, that's not necessarily comparable data, because I would imagine that workers at Tesla have been tested more often than Alameda County's general population. Tesla also employs the population that have the highest case rates per 100,000 population in Alameda County: 18 to 30, 31 to 40, and 41 to 50, with positive tests in those age brackets in Alameda County ranging from 0.62% to 0.75%, all higher than Alameda County's general population, which again was about 0.50%. So with that data, you're free to come to your own conclusion about whether the 1.3% rate from Tesla is high or not, but either way, it does look like affected cases have been increasing by week. That could be a result of more robust contact tracing as time goes by, or a result of more testing. But again, not really the trend that anybody wants to see, and if there is quarantining of Tesla's team members and that continues to expand, that could easily impact production rates, and if things continue to worsen, further restrictions could be implemented, further impacting production rates, or eventually we could see another shutdown. Hopefully none of that is the case, but it's certainly a risk worth keeping an eye on. Alright, next up today I want to talk about a little bit of confusing reporting on a developing situation in China. This seems to stem from a channelnewsasia.com report with the headline of, quote, "Chongqing City District says it discussed projects with Tesla," end quote, which continues on to say, quote, "U.S. automaker Tesla Inc. has met with officials from a district in the city of Chongqing in southwest China to discuss, quote unquote, accelerating projects," end quote, noting that district officials met with Tesla's VP of Tesla Global, Tao Lin. So obviously this is a very vague report, just says accelerating projects, but a lot of media has picked this up and assumed that it's about a Tesla factory, or at least have had no problem speculating on that idea. Electrek actually attributed the rise in Tesla's pre-market stock price to this news. Personally, I still think that was a result of the Alex Potter price target increase that boosted the stock in after hours yesterday. But anyway, accelerating projects could obviously refer to a number of different things, only one of which would be a factory. That being said, Tao Lin, obviously as a VP of Tesla Global, is a high-up person to be meeting with, so I don't think factory speculation is completely out of turn, but it could just be about aggressive charging or service restore, infrastructure expansion, or any number of other things. Out of curiosity, I looked up the distance of this location from Shanghai. It's about 1,000 miles, so probably far enough away for another factory, but for comparison's sake, Fremont, California to Austin, Texas is about 1,700 miles. While we're on the topic here of Texas, Travis County had another hearing on a possible gigafactory in Texas again today, but it's going on while I'm recording, and they had 50 plus speakers allotted 3 minutes apiece, so we'll just have to see if there's any news coming from that either tonight or tomorrow. Next up today is some news on Autopilot in Germany. A Munich court has agreed with a case brought by an industry group against Tesla for some of their use of autonomous driving terminology, saying that using the phrases, quote, full potential for autonomous driving, end quote, as well as, quote, autopilot inclusive, end quote, in its promotional materials was misleading. So I'm not sure if Tesla would actually have to change the name of the autopilot system or just some of the promotional language that they're using, but either way, Tesla can appeal the ruling, which I would obviously expect them to do. Sticking with Germany, we have some news from BMW today, which has announced the final specs and pricing for their all-electric SUV, the BMW iX3. The iX3 will have an 80 kilowatt-hour pack, 74 kilowatt-hours of which are usable, and that will get it a range of 460 kilometers on the WLTP test cycle. So on the EPA cycle, that likely equates to somewhere around 250-255 miles of EPA range. Obviously well behind the Model Y, which with a similar size pack is listed at 316 miles EPA range. The iX3 will be capable of a max charge rate of 150 kilowatts. It'll have a 0 to 100 kilometers per hour, or 0 to 62 miles per hour of 6.8 seconds. It'll have a base price of around 68,000 euros after a 16% value-added tax, so factoring out the tax and converting over to dollars means roughly a 67,000 US dollar base price, but it will not be sold in the United States. Obviously pretty uncompetitive with the Model Y, and Oliver Zipse, BMW's CEO, at the announcement made some comments that continue to show that BMW will not be making up any ground. He said, quote, in Europe, we are making excellent progress. Next year, 25% of our fleet will be electrified. In 2025, we will reach 33%. And in 2030, 50% of our sales will be electrified, end quote. Important to note here that electrified literally just means it has a battery of some sort in it. It doesn't exclude having a gas powertrain. Overall, a pretty insignificant statement other than the fact that it shows how far behind BMW plans to be. Zipse continued on to say, quote, ultimately, it's all about the power of choice. Our customers will always be able to choose the right drivetrain for their particular needs, end quote. So similar comments here about the flexibility of the drivetrain being important, showing that BMW is really not interested in the ground-up approach, meaning that their pure electric vehicles are likely to remain uncompetitive. We've talked about this before when BMW's head of R&D, Klaus Froelich, made some pretty similarly shocking comments. Yet again, Zipse continued on to say, quote, the BMW X3 clearly embodies our strategy of intelligent and flexible vehicle platforms. We can fit this model with any drivetrain we need and produce them on the same production line. Whatever our customers demand, we deliver. And I promise you, all variants will have the same high level of functionality, comfort, and quality, end quote. I've got to agree with him here that the X3 platform does clearly embody their strategy. Unfortunately, I just don't think it's a winning strategy. All right, next up today, I wanted to go through some of the news from this weekend. The first is just to point out that the Model S and the Model X have been updated to now offer 250 kilowatt charging, seemingly bringing them up to the levels of Model 3 and Model Y and allowing them to fully charge at Supercharger V3. This is up from most recently 225 kilowatts. So it's nice to see, but in reality, we'll just have to wait and see how long that can actually be maintained, the charge at that level. My guess would be that that would be very brief and probably doesn't impact the overall charge time all that much. Probably more of a marketing thing here, but we will see. Next here, I wanted to, as promised, give some of my thoughts on the changes to the Model Y lineup that Elon had mentioned on Twitter this weekend, which, just to catch people up, Tesla lowered the price of the dual motor and the performance Model Ys by $3,000, and then Elon said that they would actually not end up producing a standard range Model Y. Elon said that they will instead offer a long-range single-motor Model Y in a few months because the standard range Model Y with a range of less than 250 miles was unacceptably low to Tesla. So the dual motor now starts at $50,000, the performance at $60,000. That's very close to what Tesla announced at the Model Y unveil. They had the dual motor there at $51,000, the performance right on at $60,000. And at the reveal, they also had the long-range single motor on that graphic, and that was a price of $47,000, so a $4,000 spread from the dual motor. If that same spread applies, we could see the starting price of the long-range single-motor Model Y at right around $45,990. Somebody on Twitter asked, guessing around $45K, and Elon replied, side eyes. At the unveil, Tesla had listed the dual-motor all-wheel drive Model Y at 280 miles of range, and the long range at 300, so with the dual motor now being listed at 316, we should see the long range somewhere in between 330 and 340 miles on the EPA cycle. I think the fact that Tesla has cut the standard range implies that over time, Tesla is going to significantly reduce the price of that single motor long range Model Y, and eventually over time try to bring that down below $40,000. I think this can happen much quicker than people anticipate. We talked about this idea when there was speculation of a 100 kilowatt hour Model 3, but the incremental cost of adding battery capacity to these vehicles is becoming quite small as Tesla works down battery cost. Assuming Tesla is around $100 per kilowatt hour or working their way even below that, adding 25 kilowatt hours of battery capacity to take a standard range car up to a long range car would only add $2,500 or less in the cost of goods sold. Tesla right now offers the Standard Range Plus Model 3 for $38,000 US, and Tesla has already said that the cost to produce a Model Y should be similar to a Model 3. So all we need to do is add $2,500 to that. We get a base price then for a long range Model Y of $40,500 for a long range single motor Model Y. That vehicle would earn more revenue than a Standard Range Plus Model 3, and it would earn the same gross profit dollars. The margin percentage would be smaller, but the dollars would be the same. Tesla would presumably have the ability to do this sometime this year. They probably won't, because they'll probably milk demand at higher prices first and scale on slowly on down. But I believe that within a quarter or two, Tesla would be fully capable of offering a long-range Model Y with more than 330 miles of range for under $40,000. That is a huge volume car right there. Again, not saying this will happen this year, but the capability is there. And if it doesn't happen this year, the extra price is just going to go to margin. So yeah, not concerned with no standard range Model Y. Next on the list of things I'm not concerned about is the $3,000 price drop. As we just talked about, this is getting Tesla's pricing in line with what they had announced at the unveil. You can talk about demand if you want to, but Tesla isn't shipping the Model Y to Europe. They're not shipping it to China. So I think that falls flat pretty quickly. Tesla is just lowering prices as their cost to produce the Model Y come down. They'll lock in as much North American demand on those higher trims as they can, and then they'll expand. This is all part of the normal process. The price drop also drives word of mouth, helps the entire lineup, and for people shopping for cars, even if they aren't buying right now, knowing that the Model Y is $3,000 cheaper may influence their purchasing decision, since generally car buying is not a single day process. So even if you have the demand for your current level of production, it still might be wise to lower prices in anticipation of increasing production to lock in that more medium term and longer term demand as well. Last quick thing here, as I am recording, Travis County did end up holding the vote, as I mentioned earlier, and the county has voted for Tesla's proposal on a 4-0 vote, with one abstaining. So we'll see what the next steps are here, but one step closer today to a Giga Texas. All right, that will wrap it up for today. As always, huge thank you for listening. Don't forget to subscribe and make sure you sign up for notifications. Also, make sure you're following me on Twitter at Tesla Podcast. And I'll see you tomorrow for the Wednesday, July 15th. Happy Tax Day, everybody. Episode of Tesla Daily. Thank you.